questions come to me, and then I will read them out so that you all can have a chance to answer them.
That works.
Okay, I believe we are live streaming, and I believe that everyone has entered. I'll continue to let people in,
Great.
but good evening, everyone. Welcome to the pre-meeting program. We're happy you are here with us tonight. As I have been knocking doors this fall, I've been out to Covington for Dr. Schreier and in other areas. I'm hearing a lot from voters who are very concerned about public safety in the district. This is not just a 34th situation. So it's really fitting tonight that our last program of the year will be a superstar panel addressing this topic. Just a reminder, I'll be calling the official meeting to order at approximately 7:30. But for now, I'd like to hand off to your first vice chair and programs chair, Rachel Glass, who has outdone herself with tonight's panel. Rachel, go ahead and take it away.
Thanks, Carla. Hi, everybody. This is the public safety panel that we've been working on. I'm just really excited to have you meet all of the folks on the panel. I think we're going to have a really lively discussion. I just would like to say really quickly before we start that this is about a 65 to 70 minute discussion. We are not going to be able to solve the world's problems. This is a giant, big issue, and we are totally aware of that. What I am hoping that we can take away from this is that that you all can, I'm just trying to look at my notes, to give you some context about this issue, to just have you be able to look through the eyes of some of these folks who are presenting, to look at this situation with a more informed eye yourself, and perhaps just have a path that on which you can take some steps to become part of the solution and help mitigate the problem. So I think that is like the most that we can hope for. And I really hope that everybody is able to just come to this with an open mind, an open heart, and questions. We would love to have your questions. What I'd like to do is have you send the questions directly to me in the chat. We can't do the calling out of questions. We have so many people on the panel. I would just like to streamline it by having me read the questions, but I will read your questions as you write them. And first we'll have everybody introduce themselves and talk a little bit about what they do. And then that might help inform some of the questions that you all have. So thanks everybody for being here. Yay, 34th. I'm going to go ahead and introduce everybody on the panel and in no particular order. So we have Sean Blackwell. Sean is a lead LEAD project manager in West Seattle, where he coordinates with police, prosecutors, behavioral health providers, and community members to improve public safety through a coordinated community response. In the LEAD program, police officers identify individuals who commit low-level public safety violations because of unmet mental health and substance use challenges and extreme poverty. And they refer them, this is the police, refer them to LEAD, L-E-A-D, which provides long-term intensive case management services. Next, we have Jimmy Hung. Jimmy is the Chief Deputy Prosecutor of the Juvenile Division of the King County Prosecuting Attorney's Office in Washington State. Over 2 decades of service, Jimmy has worked on all levels of felony and misdemeanor trial practice, including homicide, sexual assault, and domestic violence. He has led efforts in King County to reduce the use of secure detention and formal court processing of youth offenders, while increasing the use of restorative justice options. Welcome, both of you. Sorry, I didn't say Sean welcome, but welcome. Saram Pung has over 2 decades of experience leading peacemaking circles and working in partnership with the justice system and impacted communities on justice reform and creating diversion programs Sarome is an inspirational leader and innovator who has been building and leading local and national movements around peacemaking and justice reform through system change and community engagement. Lisa Herbold, as we know, is a District 1 Seattle City Council member. She is a council member in our district, so we love Lisa as one of our own. Marvin Marshall. Marvin Marvin, I am so sorry I did not get a bio from you, but Marvin works with the YMCA Social Impact Center. He is the Director of Violence Prevention Programs with Young Adult Services. And I'm going to let the folks on the panel flesh out any information that I did not give. That I will leave to them. I introduce the panel. Thank you all for coming very much. Let's start with Jimmy, and go ahead, Jimmy, and introduce yourself and talk about what the question I would like to ask is, where in Seattle and or King County do you work and who do you serve? And I'll ask that of everyone. Go ahead, we'll start with Jimmy.
Sure, thank you, Rachel. I think you covered most of everything. So yeah, my name is Jimmy Han, he, him pronouns. I'm a West Seattle resident. I was also a Vashon Island resident during the pandemic. And so the 34th district is very close to my heart. I currently work out of the Children and Family Justice Center of King County, which is the juvenile court building, as well as the juvenile detention facility up near Capitol Hill in downtown Seattle. And I work for King County, which serves all the people of this county.
Great, thank you, Jimmy. Sarome, same question to you. Where in Seattle and or King County do you work and who do you serve?
Oh my gosh, you want a short version or a long version? Short version would be I live in Renton at the moment. I share a lot of this work to many people in Seattle and various different places. And I travel across the country sharing this work with lots of people as well. In terms of young people that I serve, I mainly work with Jimmy and the King County prosecutor, diverting young people to our program. So whoever the young people that refer to our program, we work with them, whether they live in South King County or not. It doesn't matter. So that's hope that's helpful. But thank you so much.
Thank you, Sarome. Okay, so same question to Sean Blackwell. Where in Seattle and or King County do you work and who do you serve?
Yes, I work in Southwest Precinct, which covers West Seattle. And I also work in East Precinct, which covers the Capitol Hill area. And I've just been assigned to a new project where I'm going to be covering the downtown area in between a particular, section of downtown Seattle. So who do I serve? LEAD serves the entire community, but we provide services in particular to folks who are experiencing behavioral health challenges. That's substance use disorders, folks with serious mental illness, folks who are being exploited, through sex trafficking, and also folks who are experiencing extreme poverty. But we serve the entire community. We interface with businesses, we interface with the clients that I just spoke about and other stakeholders in the community.
Great. Thank you, Sean. Marvin, same question to you. Where in Seattle and or King County do you work and who do you serve?
Definitely. Thank you. So I'm Marvin Marshall. I'm the Director of Violence Prevention Programs at the YMCA Social Impact Center, which for those that are unfamiliar is kind of like the social services branch of the YMCA, also formerly known as Accelerator and I believe Metro before that. Serving community-based programming, we're all throughout King County. So we work with programs, one specifically in West Seattle, but then also other programs such as Alive and Free that have worked all throughout the county, and even partnering with counties that are butted up right against us, Snohomish and Pierce, as we're looking to meet needs of young people. We work with youth and young adults that are impacted by group or gang involvement, the justice system, homelessness, employment issues, you name it. And we look to help them navigate the different hurdles and barriers that they might be facing. I'm from Seattle, lifelong resident, born and raised. Go Mariners, as it's playoff time. Hasn't been in a long time, but the communities we serve are those that are in need of the services, or in need of the support. So yeah, I think that just about sums it up.
Great, thank you, Marvin. And Lisa Herbold, where in Seattle and or King County do you work and who do you serve?
I work at City Hall and also remotely from my Highland Park office where I am right now. And I serve the residents of District 1, which is all of the South Park neighborhoods, as well as all the West Seattle neighborhoods. I do chair the council's committee on public safety and human services. So glad to be here with you to talk about community safety investments and how we are addressing some of the real challenges we're seeing in our communities. It was really important to me, and again, thank you so much, Rachel. It was really important to me to include both LEAD and Alive and Free because one of the things that I've worked to do is to recognize, just like we have policing services that are place-based and focused in geographic areas, our alternatives to traditional policing are community-based services that work on community safety need to be place-based and focused on geographic areas as well. And so that's why I worked in a previous budget year. We're in budget again. I worked in a previous budget year to make sure that we had LEAD services focused here in Southwest. And likewise, what's called the Seattle Community Safety Initiative is a place-based intervention. And Marvin is the lead for the Southwest hub of that project. So just really appreciate your including them.
Great. Absolutely. Okay, so the next question that I want to ask that let's just dive right in here, that I would hope that all of you can answer this. What do you see as the most pressing or the most urgent problem as far as public safety goes? And this is just from your perspective, your opinion, your expertise, each of you. I'd love to, let's go ahead and start with Jimmy on that.
Thank you, Rachel. That's very easy. The number one thing for me right now is gun violence. I've been a prosecutor for over 20 years, 23 years to be precise. Much like Marvin, I've been a resident of King County for most of my life. I'm almost 50. Getting up there. I immigrated to the United States when I was 3, and I've lived in King County ever since. And so I feel like I have a good sense of what our community has been like and how it's transformed. And I will say, like, in 2022, it's hard to conceive of how many guns are in our streets and how much violence is around the use of guns. And that's not to say that the people are any more violent, because actually the statistics would show that crime has actually been going down. And in some ways, violent crime is going down over the years. There's been spikes during the COVID years, and Seattle is not unlike most communities throughout our country trying to deal with the pandemic. But for me, in terms of just my personal safety as a citizen and for my family, just seeing how much gun violence is out there, where maybe 10 years ago, a disagreement might have been a fist fight in a parking lot. Now people all have guns, and that just elevates the dangerousness to our community. And so that to me is the number one issue that I see.
Okay, thanks, Jimmy. And Saram, how do you weigh in on this?
No, I feel the I think at the immediate urgent, like Jimmy, is the gun violent aspects of it. I'm sure there are other violence like the domestic violence and all sorts of different things that's happening in home behind closed door that maybe none of us seems to understand. Those are some things that I think, and much deeper, I think that as human and social species, we come together with our differences and we don't always get along with each other. So there's all sorts of things that when you think about public safety, there's a lot of things that contribute to these notions of what public safety look like, if that makes sense. And I think a lot of it is humans having issues and have not dealt with unresolved grief and unresolved trauma. I think that's the root cause of public safety, if that makes any sense. But I think an immediate moment, like Jimmy, is the gun violence that pertain to young people and then community that we're facing right now. And it's across the country as well. So that's a major concern for me as well. Thanks.
Thanks, Saram. Sean, what do you think the most pressing issues with public safety are from your vantage point?
Yeah, and in my conversations that I have with folks in Southwest Precinct, West Seattle, the Capitol Hill area, according to conversations that I've also had with some of the individuals that are out there experiencing behavioral health issues, what I hear the most about are unmet behavioral health needs. I hear about folks that are experiencing serious mental illness, substance use challenges that are manifesting symptoms related to that and engaging in public safety infractions. That could be public safety disturbances, yelling, screaming. That could be shattering windows. A lot of this manifests in crimes of survival where folks are going into stores, stealing things to survive, food, or stealing things that they'll in turn go and sell to basically pay for their substance use challenges and self-medicate. So in the conversations that I have with community members, I hear a lot about these types of public safety disturbances and public safety problems. I also hear a lot of concerns about accountability. I hear folks talk about the RVs in certain places, and when those RVs are, moved, they typically displaced to another neighborhood, and certain activity occurs around those RVs that leads those community members to feel unsafe in that particular area. So yeah, these are the issues that I hear the most about.
Thank you, Sean. Marvin, from your point of view, what would you say are the most pressing emergency issues that have to do with public safety?
I would echo a lot of what's been said. I think that this is such a complex question, though, that there is no one answer. I definitely think mental health is an issue. Gun violence is definitely an issue. Resources, and then the different layers of that answer in resources, not that there aren't enough resources, but how do we get the resources into the right spaces? How do we make sure that everyone has the resources that they need? And so I would definitely say that it's such a complex question that there's a few different answers to it, and mental health, I definitely see that as being an issue. Access to housing. I think that when I look at it through the lens of a service provider, doing mentorship work, I can work on behavioral change, but if I don't have access to resources, whether it be jobs, whether it be housing for young people, whether it be you name it, then sometimes that work, I feel like a hamster spinning in the wheel, and so I think that there needs to be a holistic approach to the issue, and not just whether we're even looking at funding, is it long-term investment? Is it short-term investment? Is it, from a provider standpoint? And I think that the biggest pressing issue is there's too many disjointed efforts. I think if I can honestly answer your question, there's too many disjointed efforts because a lot of people are doing a lot of good work in different spaces. And so while you may be pulling in this direction, I'm pulling in this direction. And sometimes it's just through your lens, sometimes it's intentional silos, you know, but I think different work being done in different areas and moving the needle in different directions has caused us to be in a space to where everybody's trying to solve a problem, but not together in the same space, you know. And so I think that's one of the biggest pressing issues to answer your question with public safety. Granted, there are a lot of sub titles under that we could pinpoint, whether it be mental health, gun violence, resources, you name it. But I think the overall higher level theme that I would look at is the disjointed efforts that are, you know, whether it be people's differing opinions on some of these things, maybe it's the ideology, you know, who knows, you know, but I think that there are a lot of different efforts moving in different directions and a lot of differing ideas on public safety, because that's also a context thing, you know, to be honest.
So the process of how to bring some of these different threads together might in itself be a whole issue of what's leaving people in the cracks or something like that. It's not being able to give the full holistic. Thank you. That's a very interesting.
I definitely think that when you look at it from a higher level, how do we sit at the table together?
Right.
That I think is what I'm getting at. You know, how do we sit at the table together? Because that's going to be the beginning of how we even start to or begin to address any of these issues we're talking about. So, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Lisa Herbold, your perspective on this same question.
Sure. I think the area in which there's the most harm being done is definitely gun violence. But I think what's underpinning that is what we're hearing from folks, which is a lot of behavioral health issues that are not being adequately addressed that manifest in different forms of violence. And the form of violence that is again most harmful is the really disturbing uptick in gun violence. You know, we're all struggling, all of us are struggling with what they call the shadow pandemic. That's a crisis in mental health that's affecting us, brought on from more than 2 years, social isolation, grief, anxiety. We know that Governor Inslee last year declared a state of emergency, not about COVID, but about the mental and behavioral health of our children. And then last December, the Surgeon General did the federal Surgeon General did the same. One of the things that I like to repeat that Chief Adrian Diaz says that I think is incredibly wise is that social interaction is a perishable skill, meaning we can get out of practice interacting with one another in a productive way when we're more isolated. And when you feel that crisis in every community, in every home where someone is struggling, that struggle can boil over and erupt into violence in our homes, in our schools, and in our communities. And so I feel like this shadow pandemic is manifesting in many different ways. Again, the one that is creating the most direct physical harm is when it manifests in gun violence. And as we know, the in purchases of guns nationally and here locally really drastically increased during COVID.
Okay. So let's see where we are on time. All right. So how do we talk about this issue of bringing the different perspectives, the different experts, the people who are seeing all of these disparate issues? How do we address that, or are you already addressing? Do you find that you are looking to reach out to do you know, cooperative types of approaches with other facets of the approaches that you are taking to do this. Because if you are able to address the problem, I mean, not address, but identify the problem, that you may also have some ideas or have already started working on some ways forward on that. And go ahead, Sean, I see your hand, so go ahead and start us off on that one.
Yeah, so LEAD functions as a framework that enables a coordinated community response. So as you mentioned in my intro, LEAD is a collaboration between police, prosecutors, behavioral health providers, and community members. And so there's a number of different organizations that collaborate and break down those silos. That's what LEAD essentially does, is it breaks down those silos between those behavioral health providers and the law enforcement community. Prosecutors and police pretty much kind of have a symbiotic relationship where they communicate very well and they have those relationships. But oftentimes providers who work with people who have experienced, you know, different forms of systemic trauma, oftentimes they're not readily communicating with prosecutors and police. So LEAD brings those folks together and they enable that conversation. How is that playing out in the community? I can give you all an example that is actually taking place right now. So part of my work is to go out into the community, connect with different business owners, different folks in the community to try to get a read on what's happening in particular areas. In the Highland Park area, I have different business owners that I've connected with. I have pretty good relationships with them. And they let me know, you know, the different issues that they experience. After I've developed a really good understanding of that different information, I can go and convey that to different stakeholders, including folks at the city attorney's office, including SPD. And then we can say, okay, it seems like we have a behavioral health, we have a concentrated, you know, level of behavioral health issues in this particular area. How do we move into this space and cohesively engage this problem in a way that doesn't exacerbate it and that doesn't simply displace it to another part of the city? That's a seriously complex thing to do. So it involves a lot of conversations. In this particular incident, situation that I'm doing right now, there's a particular property in Southwest Precinct that appears to be the nexus of a lot of challenges in the Highland Park area. As a group, we are going to go to this property and we're going to help clean up that particular area. When police officers engage with the individuals at that area, if they identify particular persons who they think would be better served by intensive case management services, then they'll make that referral over to LEAD and then we'll engage that person. So we're engaging in a conversation. There's opportunities that are developing in that conversation and silos are being broken down between police, prosecutors, and community via that LEAD framework.
Great. Does anyone else want to address that specific question about how the organization or the service that you are working with takes steps to reach out and maybe break down some of those silos that people find themselves in? Lisa, go ahead.
Sure. I just want to speak to the fact that King County Executive Dow Constantine, in recognition that gun violence is a regional challenge, has convened a King County Regional Gun Violence Prevention Leadership Group. It is convened by himself, Mayor Harrell, and Prince from September in Tukwila, and just working, I'm sorry, in Renton, my bad. The focus is really to, again, to look at the data, make data-driven decisions around violence prevention, build the political will to holistically address the conditions, influence policymaking in all of our in all of the jurisdictions within King County, so we can be coordinated and really lift the need for resource alignment and allocation that is sufficient to do the job. And we're working on developing a regional community safety and well-being plan. I think will be instructive towards those goals for our region as a whole, but also to help lead the policymaking and budgetary decisions that we're making in our individual jurisdictions within the county.
Great. All right, any others who would like to address on this question? Because if not, I have some more questions I can ask.
Definitely, I can, where we all got something to say. Go ahead, I'll go next. One of you guys.
No,
go.
you're good. You're good, Marvin. I saw you unmute, so you go for it. Marvin.
Yeah, no, definitely. Just to speak from a community standpoint, there are definitely efforts being made in community to tear down the silos and to work together. There's a few initiatives. One, Youth Link, that works similar to like Sean was speaking about with the LEAD framework. Youth Link, we facilitate a comprehensive gang model, which is definitely bringing in different providers, bringing in community, bringing in law enforcement, bringing in the juvenile courts as well. And we have multidisciplinary teams that are serving young people all throughout King County. There's 3 tables, one in Seattle, one in the Highline area, and then one also Kent, Auburn, Federal Way. And we're working with school districts. We're working with behavioral health specialists. We're working with different counselors and case managers, and just trying to support young people in that wraparound service type of engagement. We have skilled professionals, including outreach workers, case managers that are definitely going out, engaging young people, meeting them where they're at. And so that's one example of just tearing down those silos and trying to bring folks to the table and engage young people. We also have the SCSI, which is Seattle Community Safety Initiative, which is as community, when the pandemic happened, it was kind of rough on everybody. You know, it was, nobody knew what to do. We went from being suggested to be at home to, well, no, you need to stay at home, you know, and then how long is that going to last? And so as that happened and we were safer at home, violence, as Jimmy mentioned, had spiked, you know, during the pandemic, and young people were not staying home, you know. So as community, we met providers to try to see how we could curb the violence, how we could tear down the silos, and how we could work together. And from that stemmed lots of different partnerships and initiatives. But the one I'm speaking about is SCSI, Seattle Community Safety Initiative. That's 4 partner organizations to include Community Passageways, the YMCA, Urban Family, and the Boys and Girls Club. And what we essentially did was look at the different models that we had. We've all done this work long time in the community, and see how we can mesh those models together and come up with that neighborhood hub style of engagement. And so Councilmember Herbold spoke to, I support the West Seattle hub, but that initiative has 3 hubs throughout Seattle, one Southwest in West Seattle, one in Southeast Seattle, and one in the Central District, you know, and different organizations oversee those hubs, but we have shared models, we have shared policies and procedures on how to do the work, shared training, and shared data. And so that's just one example with the SCSI of us coming together to tear down the silos, to collectively do the work, because no one person has the answer, you know, and together we're going to be able to move a lot further than individually. But that was my 2 cents on that.
Great, that's great. Jimmy or Saram, anything you want to add?
I'll just add on to what everyone kind of, you know, allude to it. I think, Marvin, you're right. You know, I think that public safety and violence has been part of the human race since the beginning of time. And we still have the same problem today as we have it before. I think that there's a couple of things. I think trust is the most underestimated, undervalued when it comes to collaboration. I think if we look at the human species, when we come together with our differences, there's always friction, there's always tensions that lead us to oppositions, and next thing you know, it stagnated us to come together. I think that we need space and time to build trust intentionally, just in case we need to collaborate, if that makes sense. I think we're good at coming together when there is crisis that threat us all. That's part of the human legacy, that, okay, let's come together because we need to be safety. We need some safety and we need to deal with whatever we're dealing with. But how do we deal with a lot of this situation? By promoting trust and shared aspirations. I think that goes back to what Sean and Marvin kind of shared, that until we build trust and shared aspiration, then we find some way to work collectively together. Because I think a lot of it just politics, system does not work together. The community and nonprofits sometimes struggle to work together. And the traditional way to say, well, let's build a coalition on youth violence. But, well, let me just say this, though, are those the right character and people who understand youth violence and addressing this thing? So sometimes we're picking up the wrong team to deal with wrong situations. And so those are some of my thoughts that I have. I think a lot of it has to do with trust and shared aspiration. And a lot of us don't trust each other enough to collaborate and work together. And I think until we sit down and put all the money and their politics away and say, what can we do to create that sense of trust? And what type of aspiration that we call to work together to deal with, I think it's going to continue to struggle to come together as we're dealing with this issue. So that's some of my thoughts.
Jimmy, real quick before you go, I just wanted to just drop this gem. Saram, that was beautiful. And I think it all ties back to relationship. For me, everything in this work is based on relationship, whether you're looking at it from even down to serving a young person. I can't get a young person to even trust me if we haven't built some kind of relationship, some kind of rapport. So I think that's the biggest thing that I pulled away from that, Saram, is the relationships. How do we work together if we don't have any relationship? How do we trust each other if we don't have any relationship? Sorry, Jimmy, go ahead.
No, you're good, brother. Rachel, I'll be super quick. I think, one of the themes that you're hearing from everyone is this is a really complex issue and requires a lot of collaboration. I think as citizens, if you have leaders or politicians or prosecutors saying like they can solve the problem themselves, then you got to seriously question that, right? Like our office is trying to build out these community partnerships. We partner with Saram. I've met with Marvin with the community. Our office helped build out LEAD, which John is a big part of, and we need to continue to do more of that. Like I said, I'm a career prosecutor, and I'm here to tell you that just saying, hey, let's get tough on crime. Let's hold people accountable. Let's talk about public safety, and just talking tough and thinking that those solutions are simple. That's just the easy way out, and it's going to get us right back to where we are today, which is talking about crime. The other thing I would add is, as citizens, we need to seriously ask our leaders, what are we investing our money in? I'm shocked to even, find this out so late in my career. I recently discovered that King County's general fund spends 73% on criminal justice. 73% of your county to tax dollars go to the justice system, and only 5% goes to public health and human services. So when you do the math and you ask yourselves, how much tougher, how much more, can we put into our justice system, and we still feel unsafe, we still feel like we have to talk about public safety, we maybe have to start really thinking about, are we investing our resources in the right place? And I'm not saying you throw out the justice system. Trust me, like I said, there are still people out there shooting people, committing sexual assault, domestic violence, and sometimes we have to deprive people of their freedom. And that's a pretty harsh way of saying that, but we're really good at that. We're not very good at the community piece. We're not very good at getting at the root causes. And I think figuring out how we can better invest our resources to help resource people like Marvin, resource people like Saram, resource people like Sean, so that they can get to the young people and the adults who need help, and get them to a place where they're not causing harm. And I think that's from my perspective as someone who works in the system, that's our best strategy to get to public safety.
Thanks, Jimmy. Sean, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to add that I think the way we're going to get to this is by having the council, the county council, and the city council create an enabling environment that incentivizes and funds data sharing amongst different providers and agencies, to where the city council and the county council is saying, we're going to look to fund organizations that are primed and prepared to break down data sharing barriers and care coordination barriers that enable cross-agency, interagency coordination. I think that's going to involve the CEOs of the different organizations, who oftentimes have long-standing relationships in this community, some that may be good, but some that may have a lot of baggage that actually impedes care coordination across agencies. I think we need to take better advantage of data sharing platforms. There's a lot of technology out there that can enable these different organizations to communicate across agencies and thereby proactively upstream engage a lot of the different behavioral health problems that we're seeing and substance use problems that we're seeing. I also want to note that when we're talking about violence, violence often involves trauma and mental illness as well. And a lot of the people that are victims of violence, they'll in turn go out and commit gun violence as a way of communicating to other folks that they're not the one, or getting retribution for someone in their family that was hurt, or just a number of different issues, right, that involve mental illness. As Councilmember Herbal said, like, violence is a very prominent symptom of mental illness, but the root of it is trauma and mental illness. So we need to focus on those things.
Great. Thank you, Sean. I'm going to go ahead and pick up some questions here from our audience. And again, raise your hand just so I can call on you right away on the panel. Have the red flag laws Washington passed a few years ago made a noticeable impact? Anyone? Jimmy, might you have some data, or Lisa, maybe some data on that?
Yeah, I don't know if I have any data. I will say that, I'm really proud of the work that our office has done around creating a unit that's solely dedicated with working with law enforcement and even school districts around utilizing the extreme risk protection order process. I'll speak personally to myself as the person in charge of our juvenile division. I assigned a senior deputy prosecutor whose job right now it is to build out those relationships and trust with the school districts. And so when there is violence at schools, whether someone brings a gun or threatens violence in its learning environment, her job is to coordinate all of those agencies to get together, conduct threat assessments to figure out if there's a young person that we need to provide services to, whether or not it's mental health or substance abuse, to make sure that they're not a threat to themselves or the learning community. And then if appropriate, if there are guns in the household and there's a risk that the young person might have access to them, we will work with law enforcement to use those red flag laws to try and either get the guns or to make sure that they're being securely stored. And so it's definitely a step in the right direction because, like I said, our communities right now are flooded with guns, and to the extent that we can make sure that people are securing their guns safely and that they're not in the wrong hands, I think it's a tool that is helpful.
Great. Lisa and others?
I just to add on more anecdotally rather than having hard data, but the number of guns that SPD has been able to take off the streets in the last year is very, very significant as compared to past years. There's also more guns on the street, right? But SPD does credit extreme risk protection orders for their ability to confiscate a lot of those guns. So it is a tool. It's not I'm not even going to use the bad pun I was almost about to use. It's a tool. It will not solve everything, but I really think that finding more ways to encourage people who have guns to leave them at home and think differently about whether or not a gun makes them safer is really important work. Sean mentioned a program that focuses on young people who are victims of gun violence and their families, in recognition that it is precisely, you wouldn't think of it necessarily, but it is the victims of gun violence and their families who at a higher percentage of the time become perpetrators of gun violence, because there's this cycle of when you're a victim, you're going to strike back. And we have a really successful hospital-based program at Harborview that provides wraparound services to these victims of gun violence and their families to try to mitigate the likelihood of that happening. It's been very, like I said, we see so much gun violence. You don't see the areas in which it's actually reduced. Gun violence is reducing, but in that cohort of under 25-year-olds, we're seeing great results from this program. But this program does not serve people who are over 25. And it needs to, because that is the age between 25 and 40 is the age where we're seeing the data shows from Harborview, the biggest uptick in gun violence is in that older cohort. But we don't have an intervention program like we have that is geared towards that particular demographic.
Interesting.
And Councilmember Herbold, are you speaking about the Peacekeepers initiative? And I apologize, Rachel, I forgot when I was speaking about collaboration. So to Councilmember Herbold's point, the Peacekeeper Initiative is the more regional approach. So SCSI is the more specific Seattle neighborhood-based, location-based engagement, which we have the West Seattle Hub. And then we are also on the Alive and Free side of things, a part of the Regional Peacekeepers approach, which is a more regional approach where community and partner orgs are coming together. I want to say there are between 6 and 10 or 11 different orgs that are a part of that work, where we're partnering with the hospital-based intervention, looking at trying to serve young people that are experiencing gun violence directly or indirectly in the Seattle and King County, Greater Seattle area, and working as partner orgs to tear down those silos and see how we can collectively engage them. And there's an element of crisis response. We're working with local law enforcement with the shots fired data to try and find those predictive trends in community where different people are experiencing gun violence. And so that is another example of tearing down the silos and coming together and trying to have a shared strategy on this approach to public safety.
Great. Anyone else? Or because we got questions are starting to roll in, so I want to get as many as we can. We have a couple of, oh, sorry, Sean. Yes, go ahead.
Just to kind of span off what Marvin was saying and what Lisa was saying, right? About violence is essentially a form of communication. Something that they're doing out in Chicago is they have violence prevention folks housed in emergency departments in hospitals, because when a person comes in there with a gunshot wound or a stabbing wound or whatever it is, and then their family members show up to support them while they're getting emergency surgery or whatever it is, that's a really good opportunity, a really good time for you to have case managers there and violence interrupters there that can intervene with folks who are vulnerable and probably predisposed to go out and communicate via violence, in relationship to what just happened to their loved one who's in the hospital. And the person who's been victimized that's in there, they can be treated, you know what I mean? And, folks can intervene in that way, right? So there's a lot of different strategies out there and ways to intervene. We got to share that data, just as Marvin's saying, and come up with these innovative strategies that, like I was saying, that city council and county council enables and incentivizes through their funding. Whoever it is that holds the purse can really incentivize and make sure that these agencies engage in interagency cross communication that really helps to bring down these issues proactively through care coordination.
Great, thank you.
Rachel, could I just share a few words if that's all right?
Indeed. Please go
Great.
ahead, Jerome.
Thank you. I just want to say that, there's this thing called what is it? Hurt people, and healing people heal people. I think when you look at public safety and violence, just like Sean and Marvin just talking about, like underneath all of this is human traumas and unresolved grief. And we actually, as a human species, we don't know how to heal ourselves in ways that really impact us on a fundamental human level. So I think that it's nice to change policy. It's nice to talk about the funding and all of those things and making sure that people build trust and shared aspiration to do the work. But we don't have the methodology to deal with the underlying root cause of this is human traumas and healing. Then hurt people will continue to hurt people, if that makes any sense. And it doesn't matter whether you're politicians or a prosecutor or gang members. It just hurt people, if that makes sense. So I think that we have to have a better strategy to address the symptom, and at the same time have a strategy to address the root cause, and that is human trauma. And I think, quite honestly, Sean, I think that the council should be sitting in peacemaking circle with young people and family and community impacted, so that you make good decisions that reflect the people, if that makes sense. I'm a big fan of people working together to build trust. It is the only way we can solve these complex social issues. But I think to say that the people who has the power of decision-making doing this by themselves and not the others, I think I think there's a gap that is going to continue to perpetuate. I think we need to sell the strategy that healing is good for human being. But if you talk to people like Jimmy and other people who are law enforcement, they look at, I'm not saying specifically Jimmy, because I've known Jimmy, but other people say, well, healing, like who give a shit about healing? Well, actually, it's the only thing that's really good for human being, and it makes you more human. And if you want to have anything to do with human, you might want to know what it means to be human first, because then you speak the human language regarding their race, their ethnics, their economic background. So to me, I think the strategy of healing and trust and should be at the center of this, because then we have enough resource to put it in the right place. We can share capacity to collaborate and work together to solve these complex issues. That would be my thought. And so I'm thinking that healing should be at the center of this, as otherwise we're just going to continue to perpetuate pain, traumas, and hurt. And this is what we do best. And we need to stop that. And I want to go back to what Lisa said, that, this is the real issues when it comes to youth violence, that grown-up behave in a very passive aggressive violent way and taught young people this way of life. And yet when young people carry a gun and shoot people and do all sorts of things, like, well, young people is the problem. I think they're innate pointing fingers at people because we don't want to take responsibility and own our own stuff, that we need to do our own healing work, our own stuff that gets out our own way. And maybe young people see that this is a better pathway for them as well. Those are some thoughts that I wanted to share. Thanks.
Okay.
And then
thank you.
Rachel, before
Yes.
we move on, I know we don't have too much time left. I
No.
just wanted to ask about how many questions do we have, just so we can all kind of be aware
Well,
of the
there-
time and all that.
They're coming in. So I've got about 5 or 6 questions that have just come in. So let's barrel ahead and see if we can just answer as many of them as possible.
That works.
There are a couple of questions, so I'm going to put 2 of these folks' questions together, and that is the messaging that certain elements of our political scene do, and because this is a Democratic organization, we as Democrats are very concerned about how the message is being put upon Democrats as the soft on crime people and that it is because of Democrats that the crime and violence is out of control. So what are some effective messages to communicate this humane approach that we're talking about, that really can that really can help, and that they are not mutually exclusive with effective policing of crime, if that makes sense?
I'll take a stab at it.
Sure. Thanks, Jimmy.
I mean, what I try and say is, let's stop with the rhetoric around soft or tough. Let's, it's 2022. Let's be smart. So what I implore people to do is try as best as you can. And I know it's difficult when there's harm in the community to not be emotionally involved. And I think in this day and age, when there's so much information and frankly, a lot of misinformation, it's easy to be led down this rabbit hole of like, today is worse than ever before, right? Like I told everyone on this call, I used to live on Vashon Island and I never locked my door to my house. I never locked the door to my car, and it was great. And then I moved back to West Seattle and I made the terrible mistake of getting one of those Ring doorbells, and I put it on my phone. And now like every 10 minutes, I learn about my neighbor getting their package stolen, or someone's catalytic converter getting taken, or some strange person like walking in someone's backyard, which is stuff that I just didn't know before. But now that I am learning about it, it maybe makes me feel less safe. But when you actually look at the raw data, you're not less safe, right? And so I think people kind of fall into these narratives of like what information they have. And I think people just need to be smarter about it. The bottom line is that what I would also say is, show me a single study out there that says our justice system actually produces safety, right? When I talk about the juvenile justice system, I've been in this practice for over 10 years, and like, I'm a prosecutor. I want to believe what I do works. I've tried as hard as I possibly can to find a single research study, a single scientific evidence-based study that says prosecuting young children and locking them up actually makes our community safer. There isn't a single study that shows that. In fact, study after study after study says that when we do that to young people, it makes them worse. When they come out, they are more dangerous. They are more likely to commit more crimes. And so in some ways, like I want to make a plea to people's sanity and common sense is really what it is. If more prisons, more police officers, more courts, more prosecutors makes a community safe, then the United States should be the safest country, bar none, on the planet, because we have the most resources in those areas. And we're on a Zoom call in maybe one of the richest regions in the whole world talking about community safety. And so I think that's how I would try and explain it. I don't know if it's going to work, but that's my pitch to the people in my networks.
Anyone else? That's a great perspective, Jimmy.
Lisa, you had your hands on, so go ahead.
Sure. I mean, just I think the only thing I have to say is I couldn't say it any better. And the perspective of the Jimmy lens to that very question as a prosecutor, I think has a lot more credibility than anything I would say. But really, it's not about tough on crime or soft on crime. It's about interventions that are actually effective in truly creating community safety. And that's when you're concerned about the sort of the political atmosphere in which people are categorized, tough on crime or soft on crime. I think it's really important to pivot to what is effective.
Great. Any other thoughts, or I can go right to the next question?
I'll share a quick one if that's all
Sure,
right.
thanks, Saron. Go ahead.
I think that people are put in the leadership position to serve the people. I think that people don't understand their role as leaders, positional leaders, because it's almost like self-serve instead of serving the people, in my opinion. So please forgive me. I think that people who use the word soft on crimes don't understand what it means to be Black and brown people on the other receiving end. I'm a former ex-gang member. I've done a lot of things that I'm not proud of as a an ex-gang member when I used to be on the street. But nevertheless, when we're thinking about being tough on crime, you look at the Reagan era, the Clinton era. I mean, all of these stuff are really destroying our community on a fundamental level, and it's putting people in place where we're dehumanizing one another, and then thinking that somehow this punitive way of doing things and continue to dehumanize each other somehow is going to make our community safer. I don't know if that's the case. And if that's the case, then the prison system would have worked already. It doesn't work. And so to me, when we're thinking about people like Jimmy, people like law enforcement who say diversion program, restorative justice is a way to go to promote healing. Oh, you guys are soft on crime. And I just want to say that I've been doing this for 20-something years. We work with a lot of young men who are 16, 17 years old. They wrote a forgiveness letter and they read that in front of 300-something plus people, right? I've never seen any grown up have the courage to write a forgiveness letter, admit to what they do wrong, and commit that to the rest of their own community, if that makes sense. To me, the work that we're doing is not about soft on crime or tough on crime. It's about humanizing each other so that the things that we did wrong to one another, that we should hold people accountable on that, but nevertheless, we have to remember that these are human beings that we're dealing with, and how do we help human to become better instead of making it worse? That's just some of my thoughts. So I think that when you think about tough on crime, it means that Black and brown people, more Black and brown people are in prison, and it's not working. And the best thing that people can do is go back and revert back to doing the business as usual and think that that's the finest solution that we can come up with. I think we could do better. And leadership is about serving people, and the people are deserve to have leaders who actually treat them better, if that makes sense. So those are some of my thoughts that I just wanted to share. Thanks.
Thank you. I've got some more questions, so I will, on I go. Here's a couple of questions about asking, this has to do with, I think, mental health issues mostly. Which agencies or organizations are providing affordable mental health treatment in Seattle, and where does their funding come from? And are their resources adequate? And if not, how will this change?
I can Councilmember Herbal,
Sean, yeah.
Councilmember Herbal probably knows this issue a lot better than me, so I'll give it.
I'll go after you.
All right, so I am a clinical social worker. I'm an MSW, bachelor's in social work as well, and a lot of the organizations, a lot of the people that need help for mental health challenges and substance use challenges, they can't afford healthcare to get the treatment that they need, right? So the idea that they can somehow, many of the people that we're seeing on the streets, part of the reason why they're on the streets and they're engaging in a lot of these issues on the streets is because they can't handle those issues via, paying for it in a traditional setting. Like if one of us fell off the bandwagon and found ourselves in a situation where we were dealing with a substance use issue, we have insurance and we have resources where we may be able, to go get some treatment. But many of the folks that we're seeing on the streets, they don't have those kind of resources. So they have to depend on Medicaid, some on Medicare, and funding via community-based, organizations that, the city council funds. That's where they get their treatment from. But Councilmember Herbal could answer all that. So.
Well, I was mostly going to just talk a little bit about investments last year and some efforts, again, crediting our county executive on a ballot measure that he's developing. But So last year was, for me, was really a year to focus on increasing funding for behavioral health services. It's not really under state law. Behavioral health services are a delegated responsibility to state government and county government. The city does buy some sort of additional services from public health. For the most part, we really try to not get in that business because it is the responsibility of the state and county government, and we don't want our resources to be. We don't basically want to supplant what the other levels of government are responsible for funding. But again, with the shadow pandemic and things being as bad as they were, I really felt that we needed to make an exception last year. And so I championed $1 million in behavioral health services that will be delivered through Seattle Public Schools and community clinics. You can, there are behavioral health services available at community clinics as well. And then an additional 1.5 million for mobile services to address the increased needs of survivors of gender-based violence. About $360,000 for behavioral services specifically to be delivered by the Duwamish tribe. This is their first effort in delivering behavioral health services to the members of the tribe. We added 2.5 million to expand mobile mental health crisis services. These are funded with external partners, nonprofits, and that they actually go to where people are in crisis. And then finally, we contributed $5 million to King County for a facility that they're standing up to serve people with high acuity behavioral health needs. Because of our recognition that behavioral health is not primarily a city responsibility to fund, we passed a resolution which called on King County and the state to increase their funding for services to address behavioral health conditions. And as I just alluded to, King County Executive Constantine proposed a really important levy focused on this need, creating 5 new regional crisis centers, preserving and restoring the loss of residential treatment beds that we've lost since 2018, supporting the workforce, the behavioral health workforce, and also working on providing sort of immediate services while we're building these facilities. So the city's got $5 million in the pot for the development of a single behavioral health center or high acuity needs center that I mentioned before, but then the county is going out for a levy to more broadly address these needs. And it's I think one of the most important things that's going to be coming on our ballot coming up.
Okay, Sean, go ahead. We just have a couple of minutes, by the way, so we're gonna just, if anyone has some really pressing thing, but we're gonna have to wrap it up here in a couple of minutes. Sorry, you guys. This is such a nuanced conversation that it's hard to just kind of gloss over things. So I appreciate your flexibility on this. Go ahead, Sean.
Yeah, I will just add that because I think that the question also asked, are these programs being adequately funded, or are these services being adequately funded? I mean, folks, champions like Councilmember Herbold and other, funders are doing their best, and there's a limited amount of resources out there for sure. But no, I would say that there is a lack of funding for the issues that we're seeing in the community, and any chance that folks get to support funding these programs. In particular, let me put a shout out for tiny house villages. If folks can support those types of programs, that would be super helpful.
Anyone else? Final thoughts? What I would like to ask of everybody on the panel is, we clearly did not we almost got to all the questions, but we didn't get to all the questions. And I don't want to have anyone here who attended tonight feel that they are left unresolved. So if all of you could put your contact information into the chat, or Marvin, what I also would love is if you could, if you have access to any of those links that you had talked about and organizations that you had mentioned, if you could put the information for that into the chat, just so that folks have a kind of a buffet of things that resources that they can look to, places that they could write in to get more information about, or just look at their websites. I think that would be really helpful, because they're really, folks really do want to learn and know and research and get up to speed on some of this stuff going on in the community.
So Rachel,
Yes.
I can only write in the chat to you and Carla and Sarah.
Yeah. So let me just jump in here. We are 2 minutes over. I need to take this back. We're going to provide.
I
if you
can
guys are
also
willing
copy
to.
and paste if you want to send it in to me, and then I can copy and paste and put it to the general chat, since we've got over the rest of the next hour and some for folks to have access to that.
Yeah, we definitely didn't get to all the questions. I had a question that I was really hoping to get answered, but I think that the best thing to do would be to provide contact information in our programs hub. And
Yes,
we
and I
do-
have that, Carla. I will send that to you. I have
Okay, great.
from everybody on that.
All right, so, well, thank you. I think we probably could have gone several hours with this. So thank you all for your expertise, for your point of view. This is, as Rachel said, a very nuanced topic, and there are so many points of view that it's hard to keep count of them. And I applaud you all for the work that you're doing, and I am sure it is not an easy job that you do. So thank you. Thank you very much for your time tonight, and for your attention, and for, you know, trying to solve the problems that we have today. Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
So
Awesome.
much for the opportunity.
So much.
Yes.
Thanks, everyone.
Mhm.
Right. So Sarah, if you can pull away all of the spotlights, that'd be great. Thank you. And I'm going to
Marvin.
share my.
Yeah,
Marvin, I'm gonna try to reach out to you, brother. So look out for me.
definitely.
Thank
Definitely.
you.
Let's get something on the books. And I also left something in the chat, Rachel.
Yeah.
And you can connect people to me at, you know, whatever, leave my chat or my contact info for folks, and I'll definitely help connect them to, because there are no direct links to the initiatives. But I definitely will field calls and emails as folks want to reach out and get more information about the different initiatives and things like that.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Marvin.
Definitely. Well,
Thanks for
thank
being
you.
with us tonight. Appreciate it.
Appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. All right, what a topic. Again, I think we probably could have gone a couple of hours more. Lots of questions out there, and I think if there are questions, Rachel, that are not answered, we could probably compile them and send out an email to the different panelists and see if they have some remarks that we can share.
Yeah,
If we want to do that, I think that'd be great.
absolutely.
So much discussion on that. All right, well, again, thank you. Thank you for joining. I'll be posting a recording of the program on our YouTube channel, as we always do. Sarah's going to put the link in the chat, but we're also live streaming right now. So it will be there for those of you who weren't able to take a look at it or to join us tonight. It will immediately record off into our channel as well. So lots of good topics there. Thank you again. And we have a programs hub, which is off our homepage. If you want to get in touch with any of these members, we're going to provide the contact information there in the hub for you.
Mhm.
All right. I'd like to welcome everyone to the October meeting of the 34th District Democrats. I'm Carla Rogers. I am your chair for a couple more months, and I'm calling the meeting to order at this time. Let me get into our opening ceremonies. First off, this is really it. Right now, we are just a week away from ballots dropping. And it's hard to believe, honestly. The last I thought about this, we were right after the primary. This is our time. This is what we are charged to do as a district, as a democratic organization. It's our mission. It's our role in the party. I would ask you all, what are you doing to get out the Democratic vote? If you're here, you care about democracy, right? You care about preserving our democratic values here in Seattle, in Washington, and in the nation. You care that we keep our democratic majority in Washington, but also in Congress. You care that we don't go backwards in time where law and order was the way of the world. We have some really critical races to play right now. At the top of the ballot, your ballot that you're going to get next week is Senator Patty Murray, who's running against Tiffany Smiley, who is a hand-picked by Mitch McConnell Republican and is seeking to completely ban abortion, among other things. In the 8th Congressional District, incumbent Dr. Kim Schreier is in a toss-up race against Matt Larkin, who pledged to join the extreme House Freedom Caucus if elected. He's refused to say whether President Joe Biden's victory was legitimate, and he's a vehement supporter of Donald Trump and the MAGA agenda. In the 3rd, we actually have a chance to flip a traditionally Republican seat. This one is important because Joe Kent is simply scary. If you've looked into him at all, he has, as an example, called COVID a scam and opposed vaccines, accusing Dr. Fauci of conjuring up COVID along with all us liberals. Marie Gluesenkamp-Perez has done a great job coloring him as too far right, even for a historically Republican leading district. And right here in King County, we have commercials on TV right now. I'm not sure if anybody watches regular TV anymore, but we have TV commercials talking about how Lisa Mannion is easy on crime, showing all sorts of horrific things that they're tagging her with. The point is, there's plenty of opportunities for you to support meaningful races locally. Look around the country and see many races which demonstrate the right strategy to continue to chip away at all the progress that we made over the years. I'll say it, please do something. Sign up for a canvas, make a donation, do a phone bank, a text bank, write some postcards, whatever you are comfortable with, but please do something. Join me in doing something these final 3.5 weeks. Thank you. I appreciate your time, and I appreciate everyone's serious dedication to helping with this fight. Without further ado, Rachel, could you share our land acknowledgement, please?
I sure can. Hang on, I'm trying to do a couple of things here, but yes, let me just get that up for you. Sorry, everybody. Okay.
I'm just going to pour myself a glass of wine while you're doing that. Rachel.
I've got it here.
Fair enough.
Thanks. Here we go.
I'm going to join you, Chair.
Cheers.
On behalf of the 34th LD Democrats, I acknowledge the land on which we stand today as the traditional home of the Coast Salish and Duwamish people, the traditional home of all tribes and bands within the Suquamish, Tulalip, Snoqualmie, Puyallup, and Muckleshoot nations. Without them, we would not have access to this gathering or to this dialogue. I ask that we take this opportunity to thank the original caretakers of this land on which we live and work, who are still here.
Awesome. Thank you, Rachel. So real quick, our VIP recognition. Let's start with Chris Porter. King Conservation Supervisor Chris Porter, do you have anything to say for us tonight?
Yes. Thank you, Chair. This will be one of the last times before we reorganize before the election of the Conservation District. And as many of you will remember, it's an unusual election in which you will receive a postcard in the mail with a QR code, or you can go to your computer and do this and vote. Well, I'm going to say vote for me because I don't know who the other person is that's going to be running, and I don't really care, but to vote. And I won't have another opportunity because all of the LDs will be reorganizing by the time this vote comes in February. So I just want to keep that on people's radar and to remind them that our vote is important now, and it's always important, even in these, what I'll say is obscure or hard to obtain a ballot elections. Every vote that you render is a voice that you give in one direction or another. And if you don't vote, you're still giving a voice, and it may be in the other direction. So just remember that. But also, this is the time to think about the bare root sale that the King Conservation District has. Native plants, native plants, native plants, good for the environment, birds, bees, butterflies, bugs, pollinators. We cannot live without them. And to remember that when we're out walking our dogs to pick up, because that stuff goes right in the water and damages the salmon traveling through the orcas and the other birds and fish that live in our waterways as well. So just a reminder that conservation only works when we all engage, just like voting, to do our part to save the environment, and like voting, to save democracy. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. I see Rev Cody here in the house. Would you like to say anything tonight?
I don't have much to say except that I think Chris Porter's turning into a real politician. So maybe he'll be running for something else one of these days. But no, I don't have anything else to add. You know, lame ducks don't have much to say.
Fair enough. Well, we will hear more from you next month. Well, thank you both for joining us tonight. It's a busy election season, and I appreciate your time tonight. This month, I want to continue to use the Speak Up survey to gauge interest in attending a 34th board Q&A. Continuing the good work that we've done during this term and prior requires a leadership team. At the 34th biannual reorganization, PCO will be electing a new chair, vice chair, secretary, treasurer, King County reps and alts, and state party reps. I decided to host an open house at my home on November 16th with the purpose of talking openly about what the roles are on our executive board, both elected and committee chairs. So please seriously consider joining the great work that we've done on this board. I'm super proud of it, actually, and a link to that RSVP will be placed in the chat for you. All right, I next want to invite Preston Anderson, a member of our PCO committee, to the floor to share a project that he's been working on. Preston?
Good evening, everyone. I'm Preston Anderson, member of the 34th and also a PCO. And then the slides, Rachel, do you have those slides?
I thought I was expecting that you were going to show them. Are you not? Do you not?
Am I able to?
Carla,
Yes,
can you
I can,
Preston a host?
yes, I can make you a co-host. Give me 1 second.
Yeah, because then you can control the flow of this, Preston.
Let's see.
Okay, it's coming at you now.
Okay. Moment.
Preston, are you getting close?
I am rifling through the last email that I sent. So I'm on another computer, so I have to find that email link that I sent out. Let's see.
Rachel, is this something you can look for while Preston starts us off? We need to get going.
I sure can. Here we go.
Oh, so let me give you a couple of minutes and we'll do this in a few minutes, okay? Does it sound
Okay, good, thanks.
okay? All right, so I am going to share. Okay, let's go ahead and do the approval of the agenda. You'll see on the screen the proposed agenda for our meeting tonight. Also sent this out on Sunday to PCOs and members and has been published on our website and on Facebook. If you attended the September meeting, you may remember that we deferred the review of a climate resolution. This resolution was since adopted in September by the state party, so we don't have to review it tonight. So we can move on without that. Congratulations to member Catherine Wolverton, who wrote the resolution. And I will go ahead and ask for any discussion on the agenda as it stands. And if no discussion, I'd love to have a motion and a second to adopt the agenda.
This is Chris. So moved.
Sarah Koch, second.
All right, so we've got Chris Porter and Sarah Koch as a second. Are there any objections to the adoption of the agenda? Any objections? All right, hearing no objection, the motion passes by unanimous consent and the agenda is adopted. Moving on to the minutes. Wow, what happened to my slide? Pardon that. I have no idea about that. Let me, hopefully everybody got this in their email. We have meeting minutes from September 14th. I sent these out on Sunday as well. Are there any corrections to the minutes? Any corrections? All right, may I have a motion and a second to?
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second. Julie Whitaker, and the second is from? Bunny. Hi, Bunny, thank you. Bunny Hatcher, second. All right, are there any objections to adopting the minutes from the September 14th meeting? Any objections? All right, hearing no objections, the motion passes by unanimous consent and the minutes are adopted.
And I have the slides now, Carla.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, great.
Let's see if I could go ahead and.
Preston, is that what you were looking for? What I just sent you? Is that I just?
I'm not sure, but I'm gonna see if I could go ahead and use this this tablet that I'm doing a Zoom call on and do the slideshow at the same time. So I'm not gonna be able to see folks. So let's see if this works. And then I have control over the screen.
You can share whenever you're ready. You are co-host.
Okay, let's see. Let's see. Video.
Shall we do the budget?
Yeah, go ahead and do the budget while I figure this the controls out. Let's see.
Okay. All right. Let me move back to share my screen again. All right, September treasurer's report. On the screen, you can see the recap, high level of the treasurer's report. This was emailed out to members on Sunday as well. Would like to welcome Treasurer Julie Whitaker, who will present the report. Julie.
Hi, everyone. Our beginning balance was $755.80. Our income was $1,085.36. That included memberships, t-shirt sales, and bank fees that were paid. Our expenses were $7,732.98. A lot of that was into the sample ballots that went out and our meeting expenses and outreach and etc. Our ending balance was $21,108.18. Does anyone have any questions?
And just a note here to everyone, our campaign contributions have not been pulled out yet.
Correct.
As of right now, we have $5,000 in campaign donations, and we have another one at the end of our agenda tonight to review.
Right, and that will come out in the next month's report.
Any questions on the report? All right.
Yes, Madam Chair, I have a question, as does Ted.
All right. Oh, sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
On the 7,732, is that the cost of the hall or the door knockers or both?
It's like 13 different things.
Oh,
The majority of that money is our sample ballot, which was pretty close to 5,000. And the hall expenses for September and November is a lot of the rest of that. The majority of this are those two things.
Yeah, there was $5,065.99 in sample ballots for the general election. There was $380 for outreach for Duwamish River Festival and the Boulevard Block Party and the B-Town Festival. There was $868.65 in legal fees, and then you have all the normal monthly fees. So yeah, there was a lot of expenses this month.
Ted, did you get your question answered?
Chris asked exactly what I was going to ask, so you're covered.
All right, good deal. All right, any other questions? All right, the report will be filed for audit. And I'm just going to note too that we have 180 members and 99 PCOs as of right now. These 99 PCOs will end their term on November 30th, as it's the end of the 2-year PCO term. For those who filed in May of this year, you'll be invited to be a part of a King County reorganization meeting in December. So look out for that notice for this December meeting, and please make plans to attend. It's super important that we're represented. On that same topic, all 34th memberships expire on December 31st, even those with recurring donations. So you'll be starting to see notices, as we get closer to the end of the year, about rejoining the 34th. So just note that. And of course, we hope you will join for next year. All right. Preston, are you ready?
Sure, let's give it a whirl and we'll see if this tablet works. Let's see.
All right.
Share my screen. Start share. Yes.
Not seeing anything.
Is anything coming up now?
Nope.
just your name.
Preston, do you want to just make the presentation without your slides, or what shall we do?
Yeah, sure. I'll just go ahead and type in a few things in the chat for folks to follow. So essentially, I wanted to give folks a heads up about a few veterans events in November. And I'll just read from my paper slides. Let's see. So with the, there's an event coming up in November 2nd. It's the Gold Star Families Memorial Monument being dedicated in Linwood. Let's see, how do I get back to? And let's see.
Preston, I would worry less about getting your visual or your links. We can get the links later on in the presentation if you just want to kind of give
Okay.
give the
I was
presentation.
hoping to get back to the Zoom channel so I could type in the link. So all of the links will be provided to you after the meeting. Rachel and Carla can go provide you the meeting. But for the first event that's coming up in November 2nd at 2 o'clock, it's important that you register ahead of time for the Gold Star Memorial dedication in Linwood. A little bit about the Gold Star Memorial. The Gold Star organization was started back in World War I. I'm suspect that some folks are aware of what the Gold Star moms are. For those that aren't aware of it, for mothers that have lost their children overseas during conflict, there's typically a flag that's presented. I was going to show that in the slideshow, but there's typically a flag that's presented with a gold star on the flag. Started in World War I, was created a charter organization in 1984, and just a few things that kind of captures the spirit of the Gold Star mothers. They work to achieve, to inculcate a sense of individual obligation to the community, to assist mothers during that grieving process, to perpetuate the memory of those lost of lives during conflict. So this is a perfect opportunity, in my opinion, upcoming in November. Again, November 2nd at 2 o'clock in Linwood. The link will be provided to you guys through Carla and Rachel, but you have to register ahead of time. So that's one of the reasons why I suggested doing just a brief veterans presentation on this meeting instead of November. Another event here locally, we have the UW Veterans Week Appreciation Week begins the 4th of November. It goes on till the 11th of November, Veterans Day. They have a lot of events at the UW campus, veteran centric, but it's also open to families. So that's another thing to follow up with. Those links will be provided as well. Also had some resources that I was going to provide, but on the slideshow. But ultimately, what I was hoping at the conclusion of this particular slideshow was just a suggestion that for those veterans that have served, that are members of 34th LD, to maybe provide a picture of their time in service, in addition to maybe a current photo that could be potentially shared as a slideshow for our upcoming in-person meeting. And the idea would be to submit those photos to myself, and then I could go ahead and create this slideshow, and that could be presented during our in-person meeting. And again, there can be instructions that would give the guidance on how to go about doing that, and where and when to submit those photos if you're interested at all. And that's an ongoing discussion that I've had with the leadership with the 34th LD. That's essentially the gist of this kind of brief presentation about the upcoming events for Veterans Day. And there are a few other things I wanted to present, but that information will be posted by Carla or Rachel. So that's my piece, and I appreciate your time.
I'm putting stuff in the links right in the chat right now, Preston. I'm
I
not sure
appreciate it. Thank you.
if the link, if the link stays active once it goes into the chat. I ran my mouse over it and it's not showing the access, but there are web addresses that are in there that you can probably find that if you go to those websites. So you would have to go by manual though. Apologies.
Okay, so let me pull this back here. So we had this really nice presentation that Preston put together. Sorry that the technology failed us this evening, but we will get that in our weekly email, and we'll make sure that everyone, especially our veterans, has all this information. The goal, however, is we want to honor our veterans, and we'd like to show our veterans in our November meeting. As Preston noted, that we'd love to see pictures. We'd love to have information about, the service of each of our veterans who are involved in the 34th, so that we can highlight them in November at our meeting. So we will get this out in our weekly emails to anyone that is that this applies to in this meeting tonight, and obviously the entire membership. And thank you, Preston, for putting this together. Sorry that technology failed us, but we will get this out separately as you mentioned, and do our full highlight of our veterans in the 34th at our November meeting. All right, let's see, where were we? Okay. A few quick announcements, and then we'll get into our main agenda. The next board meeting will be held on Zoom in next Wednesday on the 19th from 7 to 8. The board is definitely winding down and preparing, some of us preparing for handoffs, and we really would love to have anyone who is remotely interested in becoming becoming a board member of the 34th. We would love to see you in November. Our October pop-up social is Friday the 21st from 5:30 to 8 at Beer Star. This is where it all began. In White Center. The very first pop-up social was there November of last year. So we will go back to Beer Star in White Center. I also would love to see, and I'm going to open up my participants window here. I'm always up for a beer, and I know quite a few of you are as well. I'd love to see hands if I should essentially prepare for a pop-up social in December. It would be on December 9th. If we do it at all, it would be on December 9th. I am skipping November just because obviously November is a busy month toward the end of the month. So I would love to know from those of you who are here tonight, if you would be interested in doing a pop-up social, if you think you could actually attend a December 9th pop-up social. If you are interested and would like to attend, I will schedule it and we'll make it happen. Give me 1 second. All right, awesome. Thank you. I know it tends to be like the same group every month, but I will tell you, we have a great time. It's very casual. Definitely lots of beer being drank. We have political conversations. We talk about anything in life. So I would invite everyone to partake of the pop-up social if you can. All right, cool. A couple people definitely will. And I know a couple of our friends in the 33rd would love to be there as well. So I think that sounds like a yes to me. So I will provide more details on that in next month. All right, last year we had a record 22 submissions for our annual awards. As volunteers, it's super important to recognize those who make contributions to our organization. It's a lot of work. You're going to find out more about that later. But I would just ask that, take a moment. It doesn't need a novella. It just needs a little paragraph. It's a quick form that anybody can fill out. I think it's going to be put in the chat here in a second. Please submit 34th award nominations no later than October 31st so that we can honor our rock stars in our November meeting. The link also is should be there for you, and Chris Porter is our chair this year, so feel free to reach out to him if you have any questions. Executive board elections. We've talked about this reorganization thing. This is January 11th. We'll talk more about it later on, but again, I'm going to hold an open house for anyone interested in joining the board or even remotely, possibly wanting to join the board. Please show up, hang out. I'm going to have a signature cocktail. We'll have some good food to eat. Please RSVP at the link being put in the chat now. Our holiday service project. Rachel has been spending most of her time lining up this huge, awesome, amazing panel tonight. But we will start also to pull together plans for a holiday service project in the coming days. We do this in lieu of a December meeting. We're looking into how we might help Choose 180. Sean Good visited us earlier this year to talk about the transformative work that his organization is doing in the community. So Rachel will pull some more details together and we'll share more of that in our weekly emails. So I implore you to participate in that project. All right. Lastly, we are all really excited for our final meeting of the year, which is really more of a party. And as Eileen Cody said, there's never a shy excuse for partying in the 34th. So November 9th, it's literally one day after the election. We hope to be, celebrating some victories, but we're going to gather again at the hall at Fauntleroy to close out the year. First off in the evening, we're going to have a membership policy caucus led Q&A with Joe Wynn, Joe Fitzgibbon, and our new legislator who will be hopefully cleanly elected the night of the 8th. This is a pre-session Q&A. Like the goal is to really share what are we wanting them to advocate for during the 2023 session. And it's also to find out what they think is going to happen in the session. So we'll start with that. Then we're going to honor our outstanding up volunteers with our annual awards. And then most importantly, we're going to take time to honor our departing Rep Cody. We will have past appetizers and desserts, and we're going to have a special smoked bird from Ivan. I've heard a lot about his chef skills and excited to see that. And we ask that attendees bring a side dish to share as well. We'll have a cash bar, and it should be a really fun night. I'm looking forward to it. It's a great way to end the year, and want to thank Gina Topp for coordinating the event. All right. With that, I'm going to hand off to Nick Bonazza to take over to bring on a new PCO and share kind of like the last, the last effort to get out the vote. This is the time. Go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, great. Thank you. We have I have the honor to present a PCO, Gail Summers. Gail, put your picture on if possible. And I'm going to read you the note. But before I read you the oath and everything, give us just share a little bit about yourself real quickly, and why you want to become a PCO, and why I know that you also have done some canvassing in Covington for us, but just give us a quick brief view about how important a PCO is.
PCOs.
Gail, could you lower your camera so we can only see your forehead? Yes, there you go.
Okay, is that
Thank you.
better? Okay, I can't see myself at all, so I have no idea. So, okay, so I just want to say that I have been a PCO on and off for many, many years. When I lived on Vashon, before that, when I lived in the 46th. So this isn't new, and I am just to be clear, I am an acting PCO because it's not a precinct I live in; it's the one next door. But PCOs make a huge difference in terms of voter turnout. I mean, a lot of elections are determined by just a handful of votes, and having an extra 5 or 10 votes can make all the difference. So that's why I'm really happy to get to do this. So thank you.
Great, Gail. Thank you. Thank you very much. So I'll read the oath. Are you willing to serve as an acting or a volunteer coordinator PCO for 34, 37, 67?
I am.
And do you recognize that it's your responsibility to know the boundaries of that particular precinct and be familiar with its residents and registered voters? And also, do you understand your primary duties as GOTV, getting out the vote and talking to your voters in your precinct?
I do.
Providing voters and voters with campaign material for endorsed candidates prior to each primary, general election, get out the vote activities, and new voter registration.
I do.
So before the motion to appoint, I'm going to ask what I ask all the time. Somebody actually told me about this the very first time that I brought folks to a point back 4 years ago. Are you a Democrat?
Yes, I am a Democrat.
All right.
I am a traditional Democrat, as opposed to Lyndon LaRouche type Democrats.
So, Madam Chair, may I have a motion to appoint Gail Summers to 34, 37, 67?
This is Chris Porter, so moved.
Sarah Koch, second.
Perfect. You guys are getting good at this. All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
All right, anyone opposed, please say nay. All right, congratulations, Gail. Thank you. And I had the pleasure to ride with Gail out to Covington a couple of weekends ago. She's an awesome door knocker, and thank you for joining us, Gail. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you, Gail. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick.
So I've sent out lists. You all have lists right now. The PCOs all have lists that were sent out in mid-September about the September 14th through I think it was the 16th or 17th that I sent those out. Those particular lists, as far as minivan goes, are only good for 30 days. So you will be receiving another list in the next few days that will take you all the way through to the election. You have door hangers, are sample ballots that have been delivered to you, and you've picked them up at our event at CMP Coffee, or excuse me, at the September meeting. And at CMP Coffee, I have extra door hangers for you in case you run out. And I also have some important Lisa Mannion campaign information there also too. So if you need, when you're canvassing, it's a very important candidacy to talk to your voters about. And if you need that kind of, if you need the campaign materials, please go to CMP Coffee.
Nick, I'm gonna jump in real quick. So folks, seriously, Lisa Mannion is getting attacked right now. This is an important race for us. If you're a PCO, please consider grabbing that lit and dropping her lit and sharing her lit with those on your walk list. Super important. Whatever you can do for Lisa Mannion right now is just critical. So thank you.
Yeah, it's a good, when talking to your voters, it's that candidacy is really important to bring to their attention. So also too, the 34th Dems we're involved with the every 2 years we're involved. We did it in 2020. We're doing it now in 2022. We're involved with the Washington State Coordinated Campaign, working together, canvassing across RLD. There's key races, of course, just as Carla mentioned about Lisa Mannion, but that the Coordinated Campaign works with statewide races. So we have a coordinator that works with us. His name is Ryan O'Connor. His information, he does a canvas every Saturday at 10 o'clock every Saturday. This one is going to be, folks will be meeting at Hiawatha Park or Hiawatha Playground off of California. And we will be canvassing in 2 particular precincts. I've given the Coordinated Campaign empty precincts that we have in West Seattle and mainly in West Seattle. And these 2 particular precincts, 1422 and 1421, will be canvassing, which is right across California in front of the West Seattle High School. So it'll be there. I've canvassed. The canvases with Ryan are very easy canvases. We're looking for volunteers to come out, and Ryan's information is Ryan@Washington/Democrats.org.
Dash. It's actually a dash, Nick.
.org. Okay. So it's really important. He does a great job. It's a very easy. The folks that we're going to be that you actually canvass are sort of I'll call them lazy Democratic voters. They show up for the 4-year election, the presidential election, but not the important, very important mid-year midterm elections like we have now in 2022. We have to get out the vote. I stress this so many times that it's very important for us to show up. In 2020, we did. We had an 87% turnout in our LD, and the county had 85% turnout during that presidential election. If we must get over 65% in King County, and we contribute that when we door knock in our precincts, and our members volunteer to go out and knock on doors in our legislative district. It's very important what King County does. King County, 1 in 4 people live in King County. Strong vote, Democratic vote out of King County takes care of Washington State for us. So the second thing is, as Carla mentioned, is Lisa Mannion. And I will be heading out with some people that volunteered with me to go to our new region of South Seattle, South Park. And we will be door knocking in that area for Lisa. And there's also on that particular day, door knocking in Kent for her. So it's very important to support Lisa, who actually lives in our LD, and get out the vote for her. As Carla said, it's really important. She's not running against a Democrat. She's running against a Republican. Jim Farrell has been, Tina Polodowski has removed his okay to use Vote Builder and to use the Democratic list for reaching out to Democrats across King County and Washington State. So he's being supported by the Republican GOP, so he is not a Democrat. We have one Democrat in this race, and that's Lisa Mannion. So, and I'd like some, also too, is Kim Schreier. Carla has volunteered the 34th to take care of a section of her congressional district, the Covington area. We've got 2 more field trips scheduled, and we meet at Arbor Heights High School, Arbor Heights Elementary School at 11:15. We shoot on down to Covington, and the last 2 are going to be Saturday and Sunday, October 30th. Very important that Kim continues on. This will be her 3rd term, that she continues on and votes as, I don't know if you've been watching television, but when the ads come out that she actually votes with Congresswoman Pelosi, that's why we vote for her. That's why we want her to be the CD. That's why we want her to be there again. And Carla, I'm not familiar with this one particular one, but we've had folks both from the 33rd and the 34th have gone down to Vancouver to campus for Marie Gluesenkamp Perez. And I don't have the information for that, the contact person for that down at the coordinated campaign in Vancouver.
So just to be clear, I believe Sarah's put in the chat the Marie for Congress website. Just hook into that, and you will if you want to go down there and work for Marie or phone bank or whatever you would like to do, they have opportunities there. So just sign up on the marieforcongress.com website, which is the link that Sarah put into the chat. And just to be clear, Colleen Hinton and our environmental friend Annie have been going down there at least I think 2 times so far. So if you're interested in doing that, there'll be friendly people in our area that will go with you. So just sign up.
Can I say something, please, about that?
Sure.
I went also on Sunday, and it was an unfortunate. I had extreme range anxiety when we suddenly took my car, and let me just say that Centralia is not Seattle at all. So you're not going to find a whole lot of charging stations that are working. So it was quite a, well, I'm still suffering, I think, from that range anxiety. But I also want to say, since I am also a PCO, I learned I was trying to get out early because I have a pretty large precinct. And when you download a list from another campaign, you lose your notes and any canvas results from your original precinct. And that is something that they really need to address, because you lose that list. And now, yes, I'm going to be getting a new one, but I know where I have to go to finish it up. But I had intended to do follow-up, and especially if I had Lisa lit, it'd been really great for me to do follow-up, et cetera. So that is something that there should be some way of being able to save a list. And I know that, yeah, once you open one up, you have that list, but I don't see why they can't figure out a way to be able to save your list and be able to download it a second time, because it was a little disappointing for me to learn that.
I think you would be able to re-download it, but yeah,
I tried.
put that technical stuff offline. That might be a technical problem that we can solve. Dorothy.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Chris.
I just wanted to share with people that I serve with Marie Gluesenkamp Perez on the state committee, and she is a DNC rep. and represents the committee to the national committee. And she's very dedicated to that, a stalwart environmentalist too. So, you know, she has deep connections to the party beyond just simply wanting to run for this office, that she's been representing local and democratic interests to the Democratic State Party for, I think this will be the end of her 4th year. So certainly, if depending on which weekend it is, I certainly want to jump on the bandwagon and run down there and help her get elected as well. Thank you.
Cool, thank you, Chris. All right. Back to Nick.
Great. Postcards to voters meets every Tuesday, 10:30 to 12, and on Saturdays, 10 on the 15th, 12 to 1:40, and that's at CMP Coffee. Is that correct, Carla?
That's right. And I'm sorry, I should have had that on the slide.
Yeah, that's at CMP. And if you've been on Tuesdays, as I have in the past, walking into CMP Coffee, and you see all these folks talking, laughing, drinking coffee, eating their great pastries over there, and doing postcards every Tuesday. It's kind of fun, and when you see them do that, they look like they all enjoy themselves. The coordinated campaign is working with us. As I said, I just want to emphasize that PCOs, you have your lists and everything. You're canvassing already. I know that because I'm committing your canvases already that you've already done in Minivan. But if you've got any questions about anything as far as helping a PCO or working with the coordinated campaign, please contact me. I'll give you my telephone number. Oh, well, actually, all you have to do is go PCO at 34thdems.org. Comes right to me. Please contact me, and I'll answer questions for you, and I'll help you. And I think that's it.
All right, thank you, Nick. Just everyone, please click those links in the chat. Sign up to support your favorite campaign. This is the time to do something. Why are you involved in the organization if you're not here to do something? Do it. Please, this is the time. All right, so I'm gonna move around in the agenda a little bit. I am suspecting we're not going to get to everything on the agenda as I had planned for it. Not a huge surprise. So I'm going to move through, if there are no objections, I'd like to move through to the, hold on, let me get to the slide. All right. To the campaign contributions, and then we'll wrap up with the other item. So we need to make our final campaign and initiative donations for the cycle. So on the slide here, I have a reminder for what we voted on last month. We've spent $5,000 of our budgeted $9,000. We met as a board last month and have a proposal for your consideration. After looking at our financial situation and remaining endorsements we've made, the board recommends that we make a single $750 donation to the Highline Schools levy. With that, I want to open the floor for any questions, and then I'd like to have a motion from one of our board members for this proposal.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Chris?
I move that we donate $750, I was going to say $1 million, what am I saying? Dollars.
If only we could do that.
Well, they wouldn't need the vote. We just give them the money. $750 to the Highline Schools levy.
Awesome, thank you. Chris Porter has made a motion to make a $750 donation to Highline Schools levy. Is there a second?
I second that.
And you are?
Dorothy?
Thank you, Dorothy. Appreciate it. Sarah, that's Dorothy. Is it Giesick or
Giesick? Gesick.
Gesick, Gesick, right?
That's correct.
Awesome, thank you very much. Chris, would you like to speak to that motion?
Thank you, Madam Chair. My husband was the architect for Arbor Heights Elementary School for the new one that exists. And when they did a survey, they asked the students and the staff what the school felt like, the old school. And many of them said it felt like prison. Many of these schools that were built in the 1950s were modeled after prison cells, and they called the model that they used bells and cells. Highline School has struggled to get these levies passed to improve their schools. We now know beyond a shadow of a doubt that when students have a more equitable learning environment where there's light, natural light that comes in, updated equipment, safety installed, that they do better, they learn more, and they're better engaged. This is a district that just struggles time after time to get this levy over the mark, to get these schools upgraded and built. And I think it's the least we can do in a population that struggles with higher levels of poverty and barriers and access to services that they need. So I encourage everyone to support the $750 school levy. It seems like we could and should be doing more, but I think it's certainly a fair donation. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Is there anyone that would like to speak against the motion for a $750 donation to the Highline Schools levy campaign? Anyone want to speak against? Awesome. All right, let's just do a quick voice vote. I think this will be pretty unanimous. All those in favor of donating $750 to the Highline Schools levy campaign, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Anyone opposed to the $750 donation to the Highline Schools levy? Please raise your voice now. All right, let's take that as a unanimous yes. I will be more than happy to make that donation later on tonight. Thank you all for voting. All right, so the only other piece of business, we've got about 25 minutes and a total of 29 people online, including a lot of board members. I wanted to spend a few moments sharing the role of the board. And I thought it would be kind of fun if we play somewhat of a SNL skit called Who Does That? So we're going to start, we're going to talk, I'm going to cut it down and just talk about our executive board at this point. And I would just ask that everyone, anyone that wants to play the game, please come off mute and you can just shout out the answer. I'm not looking to do raise hands or anything crazy like that. Essentially, this is all about our reorganization. You know, I jumped into this organization 4 years ago as secretary and technology chair and communications chair. And then I took over as chair almost 2 years ago. And I think we all appreciate the work that we do in the 34th. And it's this pretty awesome group that has amazing activities, and we have all this programming, and you know, we do endorsements, we do all these things as a district, but you know, none of that can happen unless we have leadership. And in January, January 11th in particular, we will be in a meeting with King County Democrats, and they will be facilitating the election of our officers. That is the chair, the two vice chairs, state party reps, King County representatives, as well as alternates, treasurer and secretary. And, you know, we need people running for those offices. I will tell you that we have a pretty good return on some of our board members in the elected roles, but we don't have a chair And we don't have a second vice chair in particular. We don't have a secretary. We're missing one of our King County representatives. So we need to get on the hat and you know, find people to take leadership forward in the 34th. So to help with that recruitment that we've been doing, I'd like to offer a segment that I'm going to call "Who Does That?" As a member, you don't always know how things are managed in the organization because you're not, you know, sitting in our shoes. Our group and its activities are very substantial. Lots of folks working behind the scenes, keeping our mission and goals at the forefront and the initiatives successful. In this little interactive section, the last little piece of business we have tonight, I want to have the executive board, specifically because we're short of time, the elected board, walk you through each area and share information in hopes that that will kind of fill in some blanks for you, and also hopefully encourage you to join us for the next term. So here's how we're going to play. I'll mention a particular potentially obscure task, and then feel free to just shout out who you think owns that task. Then the board member responsible for the task will share a little more about their role. So let's get started. No particular order. I'm going to say the first task is, and actually, let me get this slide. This elected member keeps endorsement tally reports for the organization's records. Who on the elected board keeps endorsement tally reports for the organization's records? Anyone know that answer?
Treasurer.
No.
Actually, no, it's the secretary. Who does that? Who does it? It's not the treasurer, it's the secretary. I'm gonna start with Sarah. Sarah Smith is our secretary. Sarah, tell us a little bit about what you do. And actually tell us also, very importantly, how much time does it take you every month to do the tasks that are required? Oh my gosh, I'm just noticing that. Oh, Sarah, are you with us? I see Sarah, but
now can you hear me?
Yes,
Yep.
we can hear you now.
Okay,
Awesome.
I have 2 mute buttons to make it extra confusing. So I'm guessing I might possibly have the easiest job on the elected board. It took a little while to get up to speed on how to really take effective minutes for this, but I've got a good system down. I've got a good template. I'm happy to pass that along. So I attend all the meetings, take notes on all of the online votes, and then put it into that fun and exciting minutes template that you see every session and we get to vote on at the beginning of every meeting. So if you want to kind of do behind the scenes, don't have to talk to a whole lot of people, this is the role for you.
All right, awesome. Thank you, Sarah. And as Sarah's predecessor, I was the secretary for 2 years in the last term. And, you know, Sarah is right. It is literally a pretty straightforward amount of work. It's the board meeting. It's the membership meeting. So that's 2 meetings a month. And it's taking notes and making them into minutes and sharing them with the chair, sharing them with the communications chair to put on the website, and that's it. Pretty good job. And the cool thing though is that you know everything that's going on. You are in the know on what is happening as an organization. Awesome. Thank you, Sarah. Appreciate it. And thank you for your work these last 2 years.
Happy to.
All right. Who does that? I'm going to say, who sits on the King County Democrats committee of their choice? Anyone?
Oh, I think that would be the King County rep.
Awesome. Thank you, Bunny. Bunny is actually one of those King County Democrats. Bunny's actually an alternate. I would like to ask both Bunny and Ted to tell you a little bit about King County Democrats Central Committee representatives and alternates.
Ted, do you want to go first?
Sure. Just a quick explainer here. I don't know, I could go really way into the weeds and talk about this a long time, but through the Democratic Party in Washington State, your local chapter where you go to have a meeting like we're having now is the smallest geographic space that you're in. So if you're in King County, Pierce County, Snohomish County, the local chapter is an LD, like we're here, we're the 34th LD. You get out in the rest of the state, your local chapter is a county organization, and the LDs in these rural parts of the state, there almost is no structure to, there almost is no such thing as an LD organization. They get together just rarely to find candidates and to support them to run for, the legislature, and that's about it. So what we have here where we live is you've got all these LDs within King County, and then you've got the county Democrats, which kind of serves as an umbrella organization. And I've been involved with them for about 10 years. And when I started, there was a really question, lost way, didn't know what their role was. And it's been dialed in pretty good. They know that they're going to support the countywide offices. They're going to support, things that cover multiple LDs. And they're also going to be a way for people that live in LDs that don't have good local organizations. I shouldn't say good. I mean, everybody tries, and I don't want to sound dismissive, but don't live in an LD that's got a real strong organization, the means to participate. So unlike a meeting like we have here, where everybody just shows up and participates, King County has the KCDCC, which is the King County Democratic Central Committee. And so each LD sends representatives to this to do the business of the county. And we have 2 elected representatives, plus the chair is also a representative. Depending on how much of your LD is in the county, that can vary. It gets down to some LDs only have 1 representative at the county level because they're just barely in King County. We are entirely within King County, so we have the maximum, which is 3. So you go in, you do the business of the county, and we have elected alternates. And this gets back to, I don't know if you remember, but there's been instances where an elected person that is elected to the legislature has to leave office, and it's up to the local Democratic county organization to find a replacement. Again, this gets really arcane. And so we have to have elected representatives to the county. So we have 4, the 2 primary, and then 2 alternates to serve when the primary is at. So you do the business county. There are ways you can be involved with the county without actually being one of the representatives. You can volunteer for certain committees and things, but you attend the meetings once a month. I tend to, create the report that you'll see in the newsletter as far as what happens there. So, for me, I'd say it's about, 3-4 hours a month that I spend on that. It's not much. If you're an alternate, I would encourage you to attend now and then, just to keep your kind of toe in the water of what's happening, so you know. But that's pretty much it.
Question? Awesome. Thank you, Bunny.
Yeah. Hang on. I was trying to. Okay, my video doesn't work.
Yeah, I was the alternate, but I attended all the meetings because much of the time I did indeed have to fill in. And even if the person that you're the alternate for has to leave briefly, they have to hand you their credential. We are the representatives of the 34th at that county level. So we are the voice, we are your voice at that county level. And I also did our committee service. And that was, I had a committee that was pretty easy for 3/4 of the time and really hard for the other, because it was I served on the endorsements committee. And most of the time there aren't a lot of endorsements. Then we get to election and suddenly you have 2 4-hour meetings every week for several weeks leading up to that. But other than that, oh, I'm working on platform as well. So it gets very time consuming if you're on an endorsements committee, but for only a few months out of that 2-year service. But it is a way, like I said, it's important. You have to be really reliable and be ready to represent the desires of the 34th, anything we voted on, to pass that forward at the meetings of King County Democratic Central Committee. There are, Ted, do you remember whether it's 13 or 15? How many LDs are either all or in part?
I think it's 15, but I'm not sure. Don't, yeah,
Oh,
don't hold
I
me
think
to
it's 17.
17? Okay, I knew it was quite a few.
I could be wrong with you.
But we're one of those that's completely in, whereas some of the others are more in Kitsap or Snohomish, and their representation then is only maybe one person because they have to represent their LD in other counties as well. So does anybody have any questions about?
I'd just like to weigh in and say that Bunny has the maximum time hit as far as anything you could do with the King County Dems is to be on the endorsement committee is the maximum commitment.
Don't make it sound so scary.
I mean, well, I mean,
but it's only like backbreakingly bad for
a couple of months out of that 2 years.
but in all fairness, the county does really thorough, good work on
do.
endorsements. I mean, they have a thorough questionnaire that we use so that we don't make the candidates double up. And a lot of work gets put into that. It's examined. Then there's a big committee that interviews everyone that comes up for endorsement with the county. I mean, it's a lot of good work that goes on, but it takes time.
It is. Like I said, it was about, for maybe a 6 to 8 week period, you're putting in about 8 hours a week doing this. And that's like in the meetings online. That doesn't include your homework of reviewing all of the questionnaires.
You're lucky.
Before you go in there.
When I was on the endorsements committee, they were in person.
All right, well, you guys have scared everyone away from being on the endorsement committee.
It is fun.
No, I get it. There are lots of committees on King County Dems, and all of our reps and alts are invited to be on a committee, but it is optional. The only actual responsibility is attending the meetings. So part of that is reporting also out to our membership what's going on in the King County meeting. So Ted and Bunny and Leah have all sort of swapped duties in giving a recap of the monthly meetings and that sort of thing to Steve so that he can publish that out to the membership. But there are certain committees that are much more time intensive than others. I definitely admit I have been on the committee for 2 years myself. So, but Bunny definitely was a diehard in attending as much as she could. So thank you for that. Okay, cool.
So
All
question,
right,
question?
Yes.
Okay, Elizabeth here. What's the funding source or sources for the committee or for the county organization?
Well, they do their own fundraising, and they hit up some of the same people we hit up, so that cannot be a bit of a duplication. I will say, when I first got involved with King County Dems, it was like on a shoestring. It was really struggling to keep the lights on month to month. But boy, they're doing much, much better now. So.
Yeah, definitely. Good question. Thank you. Any other questions for King County? All right. Who does that? Who manages a committee and any duties requested by the chair? What elected role on the board manages the committee and any duties requested by the chair?
Would that be Rachel?
Vice
First vice
President,
chair.
Vice Chair.
Very good. Yes, the second vice chair, which is vacant and has been vacant since Jordan Crawley resigned in August of 2021. That is the role of the vice chair too. Again, it's that particular role. I think the goal is to work very closely with the chair sorry, I'm totally messing up my slides here. Is to work very closely with the chair and, divide and conquer. That was always the goal from the get-go. And to have the vice chair will always, just like Rachel, in her vice chair 1 role, she is managing the program's chair position. So each of the vice chairs are designated to take one of the committees and then also help the chair with all the things that come up for the chair. So that is essentially the role of the vice chair too. And I will go ahead and ask Rachel to speak briefly about the vice chair 1 role.
Thanks, Carla. So yeah, I have done the technical part of vice chair 1, which is to if the chair is unable to be available to run the meeting or to do any of the chair duties, the vice chair 1 steps into those roles to take over for the chair while the chair is not available until the chair comes back. So that's sort of technically what I have done. As far as helping the chair, working closely with the chair, that is not necessarily known what that's going to be. So it's kind of like you're there as a support system for what the chair would need. And also the choosing the committee that you would like to chair there is some agency. You have some choice on what you want to do. You don't get necessarily assigned. You can pick. And I have always, I used to be involved with the West Seattle Democratic Women, and I did the programming for that organization. And I really like that job. I like being involved in the community and talking to community leaders and people and organizing those kind of events. So I really enjoy that, and that's why I picked it. And that is, that helps me to remain motivated and continue to show up and want to do the work because I'm doing something that I like. And that is a really important thing. And whoever is going to be the chair coming up next, or the vice chair too, I would like to serve as a resource to help you find your passion and find what excites you, what you like doing, what you have skills at, and what you and to help bring you in that way. Because the best way to be involved in this organization is to be doing something that you like, and that where you feel like you are necessary, and where you feel like you're getting things done. That is just key, and that's what keeps me going every day. I also have worked in some of the other committees, and the fundraising committee, the events committee. And also I chaired the Elections and Caucus Committee in 2020. So I really also like recruiting. So I did a bunch of recruiting for delegates in the 2020 election and also for this convention. I mean, the convention this year, I did a lot of recruiting as well. So that's also something I like to do. And then I've been working on get out the vote stuff. These are all extra things, but they're things that I like to do. So I am running again for the next term, and I just am going to be here. I would like to be here for any one of you who is interested in becoming involved, because I want to help you find just the right spot for where you want to be and need to be, because we need you. So thanks, everyone.
Awesome, Rachel. My God, that was like a great pitch. Thank you. So good at recruiting. All right, lastly, and this should be fairly obvious, who does that? Downloads our bank statement and files it in the Google Docs. Who would do that?
Treasurer.
How about a treasurer?
Oh my God. For real. Yes, it's the treasurer. Julie, talk for 30 seconds about your role, and then we'll do a quick wrap up and adjourn.
Okay, well, to get to the short of it, I make sure all the money going out and all the money coming in balances with the bank statements and the C4 reports that Andy Lowe does, the deputy treasurer. I get all the emails from the membership contributions. I have to group the totals with the bank and MoneyMinder when it works to figure out who goes with what. I download the treasury reports and the bank statements to the files. I get the expense receipts. I write checks, and those I send copies to the chair and the deputy treasurer. I balance the bank statements with all the information from that and my own. And I confirm the C4 reports. It makes it sound real simple. It's not. It's a lot of checks and balances and making sure everything adds up. I help with determining the budget. I work with the chair and anybody else on the finance committee, and we didn't have anybody else before. So to determine the amounts expected in income and expected expenses for the upcoming years. It's not overly time consuming, provided all the technology works. When the technology doesn't work, it's a pain in the ass, to be honest. But I totally enjoy doing it. I am a numbers person. I like to make sure everything adds up. And I'm totally thrilled when it all does. And I really enjoy doing it, and I want to continue doing it. It gives me a chance to contribute. And as an executive board member, I have the power of voting on other things, which makes me feel like I'm doing something to help democracy.
Yay.
You know, that is, Julie, I'm gonna grab this right now. That's a big part of this.
Did I say it right?
Yeah, I mean, as a board member, you are contributing to democracy. You are making all the cogs in this giant thing that we do work. Whether it's the treasurer or the secretary, whatever the role is, you are participating in how this thing comes to life in our district. And that's huge. So Julie, thanks for sharing the treasurer.
Thank you, because that means the most to me. Because the only reason I did this was I wanted to help. I wanted to do something to help. And then from that, I got to go to the state convention and I got to vote. And I'm going, whoa, my God, I can actually make a difference. And that is why I do this.
Awesome. That's awesome. Thank you. Love it. And that's the story. I mean, I don't even have to like say what I was planning to say about being on the board. That's the story. Be a part of it. Be a part of this engine. This engine is a huge engine in our state. We are one of the biggest, if not the biggest, in the state. We have a lot of voice. We have a lot of clout. And be a part of the board that drives this thing. That's the goal. All right.
Making a difference. Making a difference in the world.
Absolutely. So again, executive board open house, come in, have a cocktail. I make a mean cocktail. Don't think otherwise. Ask questions, get answers. We want to have you on our board. November 16th at my house. If you're interested, let me know. I will give you my address and we will suck you in. Again, we've got seats to fill. Bring your leadership to the table. Thank you very much. Awesome. All right. So any good of the order real quick. I know we're a couple minutes over. Just want to give the Chris Porter, go ahead.
I want to remind everyone to fill out your nomination forms for the awards. I look forward to reading them with the rest of the committee and making those decisions. It's just one of the things that you can do to keep interest, the difference that you make when people are uplifted and recognized for their work. So I want to make sure of that. And the last thing I want to say is, please, please, please get your COVID bivalent vaccination. It is critical. People are still dying of COVID. You got to get it. So thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Good point. All right. Any other go to the order?
Yeah, hello, this is Dean Shuey.
Yeah, Dean, go ahead.
I'd just like to draw attention that there are 6 to 8 million US citizens who live outside the USA who are eligible to vote. Only about 1 million of them do vote. Overseas absentee voters were greater than the Biden-Harris margin of victory in Georgia and Arizona in 2020. It is a bit of a hassle to get organized to vote when you're overseas, but it's not impossible. There is a very easy website that's financed by Democrats abroad called votefromabroad.org. It's those 3 words, votefromabroad.org. If any of you know a US citizen who's over the age of 18 who is living outside the US, the common things are military, people who are employed, students who are spending a semester abroad are a big source of votes. Please email them the link to Vote From Abroad, those 3 words written with no spaces.org. Thank you.
Hey, Dean, can you just pop that into the chat real quick?
I don't know if he can based on the
I got it.
Choose. Okay, awesome.
Thanks.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thanks, Sarah.
Dean, thank you so much for your work.
Yeah, sure.
Dean is like, this is his thing and he pounds it on every single cycle. I love it. It's important. It's real. And thank you. Thank you for that work. I definitely appreciate that. Awesome. Anyone else? Roxanne.
Just a quick one.
in the Healthcare Caucus Slack, and perhaps I could put it in the general, you will find information on the recent findings regarding Medicare, Medicaid Advantage programs. They have been found to be actually stealing money and denying service. If you would like to hear Pramila Jayapal speak about it, you can go to the Puget Sound Activists for Retirement Action website and learn more about it. But I urge those of you who are either on Medicare or Medicaid or looking at going into it this next year, that door is opening to make changes. You might want to seriously consider moving to, if you're on an Advantage plan, move back to traditional Medicare with a Medigap plan. It's a safer place to be. And again, the Healthcare Caucus page has articles from the New York Times and other sources on the findings by the federal government this year in the problems, serious and severe problems with Medicare Advantage. Thank you.
Roxanne. Roxanne, would you do me a favor and send me a little blurb from my weekly email about joining the Slack channel for the Healthcare Caucus?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. All right, any other good of the order? Okay. Well, if there's no further business and there's no objection, the meeting will be adjourned. Any objections? Okay. The October meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for staying with us.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Thanks, Carla. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Thanks, Carla. Thank you, Carla.
Thank you, everyone.
And Rachel, thank you for all the work you do to set up these wonderful programs that we see before the actual